and he started ordering in Vietnamese. I'm like, where am I? Am I in Korea? Am I in Vietnam? Am I in the US?
Yeah.
I should be
Yeah.
the one ordering in Korean. 안녕하세요. Yo, what's up, everybody? This is Tae.
And this is Gibson, and welcome to the sixth episode of
Almost Korean.
All right, so Tay, I think we have a special guest today.
Yeah.
Do you mind doing the honor?
So we have our very good friend Robert Francois joining us for this episode. We're gonna learn a little bit about him and his experience in Korea and how he's almost Korean, almost Vietnamese. But yeah, so hey Robert, thanks for joining us. Can you give us a little intro?
Thank you. It's really nice here. Really appreciate you inviting me on the show. It's really nice to sit next to Muscles and Riz here to talk about my experiences. Yeah, name's Robert Francois. Vietnamese American. I was born in the States, but my background's Vietnamese, and we moved to Korea back in 2007, or at least I did in 2007. And it's been a great experience. I love the culture here, learning about Korea, and learning more about my culture too. Being close to Vietnam, that gave me a lot of opportunity to go back to Vietnam and learn about my culture. So yeah, I'm really excited and happy to be on the show.
That's interesting, huh? Almost Korean, but we got almost Vietnamese here.
Yeah.
How does the last name work though? You just
The
say you're
last name?
Vietnamese.
Yeah, no,
Doesn't sound like
everyone asks.
I know Win. I know Tran. I know Ho.
Go.
Everybody asks me about that. So, yeah, no, my background, my mother and father are Vietnamese, but my father was half French. So I've got that last name from that French side. So my dad was, he grew up in Vietnam being half French, but also, he never met his father, his French side. So he's really just a half French kid hanging out in Vietnam. And he got bullied all the time, not looking like the other kids. And he didn't have the protection like a French father at the time. So, he had a chip on his shoulder for a long time. I feel like that's what a lot of kids here in Korea too. They get that chip on their shoulder if they're kind of mixed half Korean, half Vietnamese.
Do you think you get bullied more as a halfy or as a full like Asian kid?
I talked to a lot of Vietnamese. They have a tough experience. A lot of the Vietnamese parents, they don't teach Vietnamese to their kids because they want the kids to fully accept Korean culture, not be called out,
Oh, that's
and
true.
not be singled out. I think Korea being a really insular culture. Sometimes it's tough. It's tough not being fully. You guys are talking about that here in the show about being half culture, but I think being in Korea when you're Vietnamese, at least being Western, you have that little cachet. Asians all over, they kind of have put Western culture on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But when you're Vietnamese, when you're Southeast Asian, that's not something that a lot of Koreans are really proud of. That they want to explore. And so sometimes it ends up being a little bit. A lot of the kids are kind of ashamed of that. So
But I feel like you could pass for not Vietnamese.
yeah,
right?
when you look at me, like, I've never been to any country where they recognize what I am, and I don't expect it. Right, quarter French, 3/4 Vietnamese, born in the States, living in Korea.
What do you
Right?
normally get? I'm kind of curious on people's assumption.
Oh,
Yeah.
I used to live in Myeongdong, right? Back in the day, I love hanging out in Myeongdong with all the tourists and like that because
That's an awesome place to be.
nobody would know what you are. Because
Very
like
touristy.
yeah.
Myeongdong, like everywhere you go, like
Yeah.
I would get Jungwaran, and like halfway I sit down, like, are you Jungwaran? I'm like, no, but I'd respond in Korean, so they wouldn't really know like
They're so
what to
confused.
ask at that point. And so, it's funny, my wife would do that too. My wife's fully Korean, right? And her last name's Francois. So when people call her up, I've been married to her long enough that her accent's changed. So her accent, you can't really tell sometimes what language. It's not English, full on English, right? So she'll get a call and like, oh, hey, where are you from? Are you French? Oh no. So I mean, you start with that Francois, and she loves playing it out, right? And so she'll be like, no, I'm not French. Oh, is your husband French? No. Oh, he's Vietnamese. And the caller's like, you don't want to go any further. Right? You've already asked her too many questions.
Yeah.
She loves triggering them out.
I
Like,
can see that. That's
hilarious.
funny.
I swear, that's the only reason to change her last name is that.
Wow, that is pretty funny.
Hey, Francois, I think that's a cool name. Doesn't that mean French?
It does. It means Francois. It's actually not even my grandfather's name. back in the day, my grandfather's name was actually Danuzek, but he was already married in the States. So
Mm.
he found a lieutenant somewhere, one of his like adjutants and whatnot, and he was able to give my father that last name from one of his adjutants. So Francois is actually not really my grandfather. Danuzek.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. So, Robert, did you teach yourself Korean, or does it have a lot to do with your wife's influence too?
Um,
A little bit of both?
You know, I've been here about I've in total lived here about 6, 7 years in total. I
Okay.
did stint 4 years back in 2007 to 2012, and then we came back. I loved between that time and then went back to the States. I came back almost every year for vacation
Oh,
or
wow.
whatnot. So I love the culture here. I love the freedom. I love the uh, food. I mean, there's not a lot of places. When you go back to States, right? There's not a lot of places that are as um, able to travel, not worried about where you're going. I love to
Mm.
explore. This is one thing I did kind of notice about when I lived in Seoul. Koreans in Seoul didn't explore that much. A lot of people just hang out in the area where they're at. But
Mhm.
when I lived in Seoul,
That
I
is
would
very true.
I would
Yeah.
hit Myeongdong, Garosu-gil, like Hongdae,
Itaewon.
Sadang. Like wherever there was like some. If anyone mentioned a cool bar somewhere,
Yeah.
I was like, hey, let's hit it. Let's go. Let's go check out that bar.
Mm.
I thought that was just so much fun, and the transportation system in Seoul, it's just
Yeah.
so good.
It's funny you mentioned the transportation system, especially the subway, right? Because like you know how like New York City has the nickname of Subway City. I'm like, you haven't seen subway until you saw Korea's subway metro system.
That's right. That was a big
Yeah.
culture shock for me,
Yeah.
being have that
Yeah.
freedom of travel,
Mhm.
where you weren't really worried about, and you weren't about violence, right? You're not worried about these things. That free, when I say freedom, it's like
Yeah.
people think U.S. has all this freedom, but I think when you're not afraid to go somewhere, I think that's pretty cool.
I think it's amazing when you come to Korea, you experience Korea for the first time, and you tell your friends or family back in the States, like, hey, yeah, I was like walking around by myself, after hanging out with my friends late at night. I'm like they think you're crazy, especially when women do it.
Yep.
But guess what? It's actually, quite normal to see that here.
Pretty safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's actually a really nice thing to be able to have that peace of mind when you're going out and not feeling like you have to look over your shoulder.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Could you so you say you came to Korea for the first time in 2007. Can you like tell us why you came here?
Yes, circumstances. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
they're kind of interesting.
What brought you?
I was a 27-year-old. I was recently single. I just broke up with my girlfriend. And I was just looking for a new experience, right? So I started applying for jobs, and I was actually working. I was working for the government, so I was likely going to DC. I was on second and third interviews in DC, and I applied for a job in Korea maybe 3 months back, and didn't hear anything about it, right? And then I had everything packed. I put the deposit down on the apartment in DC, and I had everything packed in the car. I was gonna drive up that Saturday, right? Um, Thursday, I get again an email like no interview, no nothing. Hey, here's the position, and it was in Seoul.
They just offered?
It was a full offer, tentative offer, and without any
Wow.
interview. Later on, I found out that the first guy dropped out, and so they had to go with the second choice.
Gotcha.
It was a
Um,
government job, U.S. government
Yeah,
job,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So working at the time, the U.S. Army had a big base up in Seoul, in Yongsan.
That's
Yongsan.
right.
So that was fantastic experience. So
Oh,
20,
man.
here I am, 27-year-old, got an offer to go
Dude,
That's
to
oh my
to
prime
goodness.
to work
time.
at Seoul. I did all this research. As a Vietnamese, I didn't know a lot about Korean culture, so I'd watched music videos, right? Like when you learn about culture, right? What do you know, right?
That's where you start.
Right. So I'm just like all the other like Korean
Yes.
kind of like
Second gen,
Yeah.
second gen K-pop.
yeah, K-pop fanboys, right? But this is like 2005, 2007. Like there wasn't like internet, there wasn't like all this stuff out there, right?
No.
It was niche, right? All this was niche, right? So, I talked to you guys a little bit earlier about the box. I used to watch Korean music videos on that. So,
It's the
still,
first time I'm hearing about it.
Yeah, me
still,
too.
yeah, still.
Me
No, if you
too.
get a video like back in the day, KISS, like I think Pretty Girls is called, but you gotta watch that video. Like 14 minutes is the best Korean melodrama like music video I've ever watched.
Only chance we got to watch Korean like music shows or whatever was at the video rental store.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That's
Like
what we
with
had.
the VHS.
VHS.
Because video cassette tapes. That's the
Yep.
only time I watched Korean shows.
And that was like the early 2000s. for me,
Yeah,
actually.
before they started uploading stuff on the
Correct.
internet.
Yeah. Yeah. And it started like switching over to DVDs and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there I am. I got the offer in hand. I didn't even tell my parents. I just thought, I was going to go. I think I told my mom like a week before I was gonna go leave and
Oh my
whatnot.
god.
But
How did
I
they
went.
take it? Were they okay with it?
My mom's like, I've always been kind of in about. I was the first to move out of my house and whatnot, so they didn't know much about Korea either, right? So back when where we lived, there was only one Korean restaurant in the entire city, like at
Wow.
that time. It's not, you all are so lucky these days with the spread of Korean restaurants and food and culture.
Mhm.
It's so easy to learn and have that experience with Korean culture in the States, and many other places. I think everywhere as far
Mhm.
as like that reach. But like back in the day, man, there was one. Man, I remember going to that one Korean restaurant. And I tried sundae the first time, and the guy warned me. He's like, "That's advanced Korean
Wait,
food."
of all the food, there's one restaurant you would think it'd be like
Hey,
Korean
Korean
barbecue.
barbecue or
well,
bibimbap.
I mean,
Yeah.
but think about it. Like 20 years ago, I didn't know anything of it. The Korean barbecue was not popular, right? Like I didn't know anything about Korean food, right? The only
Yes.
thing I knew was maybe bibimbap. But there was no this. I hadn't watched dramas yet. Korean barbecue was not popular yet. It was like a mom and pop Korean restaurant. So they
Mm.
sold typical Korean food to Korean people, right? So
Okay.
we went there, and on there I saw sausage. And like I'm American, I love sausage.
That restaurant must have been like very typical and like very like set numbers of like customers.
Yes, it was all
Yeah.
Korean. I mean, it was
Yeah.
very local food.
Very
They didn't,
local.
and I got the sausage. I remember him saying like, "You sure that's really advanced Korean food?"
Advanced.
Yeah, I love sausage. Man, I bet you that I was like biting into an iron bar. Like the taste of iron. I
Wait.
was unprepared for that.
Do you like sundae now?
No, I still don't like it, man.
You still don't like it?
I still don't like it. That iron taste. I still don't that.
Ah.
My wife loves it though. She loves it.
So they weren't kidding though. It is advanced.
Yeah,
They
it
weren't
is.
kidding.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is funny.
Yeah, but I made it over here. It was great. I had a great experience. I met my wife the first week I was here.
First week?
First week. She was the second woman I met in Korea. First was my boss. So
You didn't
that
get
didn't
to
work.
be single very long.
No, I mean we dated. We dated for about a year or whatnot, but it was great. She was kind of new to Seoul too, so we kind of explored the city together.
That's
whatnot.
kind of cool.
fun.
I do remember one funny story. So the first 2 weeks I had to get furniture, kind of furnish the home and whatnot, or start get ready to do that. The only other experience I had in Korea was at Itaewon. If anyone knows what Itaewon, especially 20 years ago,
Absolutely.
it was like
very different.
it was like urban clothing store,
Oh yeah.
money changer, and then like a bar, and then another urban clothing store, and then like it was
Was
just
Hamilton still there?
yeah, Hamilton
Hamilton.
Hotel was there.
It's still there.
It was it was good, but I remember just being a lot of places to exchange money. So here I am, I'm going to get a furniture like a sofa or and some furnishings and whatnot. So at that time, I didn't know if credit card was usable or whatnot. So it was all cash. So I go outside, and if you know that area, Yongsan, it's so much development these days. Like people up there, I think what was it recently? The Hyundai chairman and Nvidia chairman and
Oh yeah.
and Samsung chairman
Yep.
eating in Yongsan.
Oh,
Like I'm like where he ate was the seediest place like 15, 17, say 15, 16 years. But right around the corner of that, I remember I come out of the station because inside the station where the sofa and stuff are there wasn't a place to exchange money. So I come out, and if you know that area before, there used to be glass houses, all that stuff. I didn't
that's
know
right.
that, right? I came out,
Yeah,
I'm thinking
that was rampant back then.
I'm expecting
Yeah.
to see like money change place somewhere, right? I was like, so here I am, like $500 in my hand, right? Looking around,
look like a
looking
prime.
around,
You look like a prime target
like
for
like maybe it's around this corner, right?
Exchange
So
money.
going like,
for services.
that's interesting. Like, what's this glass house here? The first one's empty, so I'm like, oh, wow, I wonder what they sell there, right?
Excuse me, miss.
So I'm going to the next one.
Can
Then
I
I
get this
see
change?
then I see a lady, and I'm like, oh, she looks pretty good. Oh, she's dressed quite revealing for the weather. So I keep going, but I didn't get it. Honestly, I did not get it because it was so. We've never seen anything like that in the States, right? I've never even considered that was open and out like that. So I kept walking. I'm still holding my money, and I'm like, I don't think these ladies could change my money. So, but I thought it was hilarious. It was such a culture shock.
That is
like,
so funny.
So,
But I mean, I'm sure you
Hilarious.
at least knew like say what glass houses are, like maybe like Netherlands.
it was
like,
so
you've heard of
unexpected
it,
because
right?
it was so jarring. Like,
Yeah.
coming out of like iPark Mall, it was a great mall. It was a nice mall coming out, and then it was it was like a turn of the corner, right? And then it was like
Mm.
something completely different.
Right, correct.
And that's what I
correct.
loved about Seoul too. Like
Yeah.
there was so much to explore. But I just didn't know it existed to even
It
expect
didn't
it.
even like hit you.
It didn't hit me, man. I really was like in my head, like the gears were turning, and I'm like,
Wow.
what are they doing? Like, why would they sit here? You know, like,
Imagine like coming out of a mall and
Mm.
then it's like it's just
Yeah.
bam. It's
Yeah.
there.
I can kind of see
yeah,
that.
kinda-
you know, I don't know what happened to that money afterwards though. I'm kidding.
Did you give it to one of those ladies?
Yeah. I'm kidding. I think I found a money change place somewhere.
Oh my God.
Eventually.
Eventually.
Eventually. Wow. Yeah, those are like all gone now. The country got
Yeah.
really strict about that. And especially as like 2010s and onwards, Korea started getting a lot of global attention. And the city wanted to really clean up the image quite a bit. And Yongsan is such a central location, right? So you're bound to have a lot of foreigners there. So I think they were very conscious of that.
Yeah. And I was up there recently. There's a bunch of really cool bars up there. It's really developed a lot in the last
A lot of trendy
50
places
years.
now.
A lot of actually they're still they still have a lot of character. I wouldn't say they're trendy. There's a lot of bars that they opened up that are like pretty cool. There's this one I remember going to one bar recently. They have ice cold beer. I mean, it's like they cool the beer almost to the temperature of freezing, and then you get to drink that. Oh, it's awesome.
Ooh, that sounds good,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, and I think I ate at a chicken restaurant that the NVIDIA chairman what was it kombu chicken? I forget what it was.
God, I'll have to look
yeah.
It was
up.
but I think I ate at that
Yeah.
chicken restaurant. But again, I mean that restaurant that used to be glass houses, and now it's like this shining like building, like with 60, 70 store building.
Yeah, I
like,
don't think it would be very appropriate to get a Jensen Huang here if you got these ladies exchanging money next
no.
with
Well,
not appropriate
The
clothing.
best chicken in town by these ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. So 2007 to 2012. So that was like 5 years, huh?
Yep.
Mm.
So during that time, you met your wife. Is that when you guys got married, or
Yeah, we got married about a year and a half after meeting. About a year and a half. So I got married in 2009. I'm thereabouts.
so you guys
2009,
were still in Seoul up until 2012?
That's right.
Wow.
And
We
then,
lived in Myeongdong, lived in Pangbae-dong, and we lived near Yongsan Station.
Hangbyong is where I grew up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, we
That's
might have
crazy.
crossed paths because I
Right,
was
it's
in
possible.
Korea
It's
2009,
possible.
2010.
Yep.
I lived in Shilim area, and then my wife at the time, we were strangers. She lived by Gimpo area, so we
Yep.
were teaching English back then.
That is
Yeah,
crazy.
so we could have crossed paths.
We could have. I mean, because the
Drinking some
expat
beer.
community at the time was really small too. Like with English users and whatnot, that there was a lot of it was a small community, at the time. It's huge now, but
Yeah.
back in the day, it was a lot smaller.
That's so cool. So at 2012, did you guys go back to the States?
Yeah, we went back to actually we went to Germany. Actually, I
Germany.
did Germany for a couple of years. Spent that's where I got the real sausage. No more blood sausage.
They didn't have sundae there?
But it was fantastic. German sausage.
That wasn't so advanced, right?
No,
That was okay.
Yeah. But we spent a couple of years in Germany, and then at that point we were kind of tired. I was tired of learning new languages. I miss the States.
That's true.
I miss my family, so we headed back. And so we stayed in the States for about 8 years.
That is a long time because you're talking 5 years in Korea and 2 years. That's 7 years
Yeah.
away.
away from your,
From your comfort zone. Yeah,
That's right.
Yep,
That's
absolutely.
right. That's exactly what it was. I was tired of like
Mm.
being out of my comfort zone.
I can totally see that. As much as it is like fun and exciting to explore new things, I definitely get to the point where I'm like, you know what? I kind of miss just being comfortable and just being in my own element. I totally get it.
So 8 years in the U.S., you guys had your kids there.
Yeah, we had our kids in the States. So we had them in 2015 and 2018. So both
So-
were in the States. One in the States.
What brought you back to Korea, or how did you come back to Korea at this time?
We were traveling every year to go on vacation. My wife is very close to her family, and then
Her family's all in Korea. A lot
Yes.
of them are.
yeah, her family's mostly almost all in Korea. So and I always wanted to explore my roots, being Vietnamese. So
Mhm.
I loved giving it a chance. My brother actually married a Vietnamese girl, so it gave me an opportunity to travel to Vietnam several times for the wedding and other events. So
You never lived in Vietnam.
no,
Just
you
visit.
guys talk about how I'm being almost Korean. I'm almost Vietnamese too, But yeah, it
New
was
podcast by Robert Francois.
no, but it was interesting. Like I went to Vietnam the first time in my life when I was 19 years old, right? And before that, I was about the most what do you call white on the yellow on the outside? Yeah,
Twinkie.
Twinkie. I was the most. I was so Twinkie. I grew up in being Vietnamese. I was not very proud of being Vietnamese.
Mm.
I hated being Vietnamese because my parents would talk so much smack about Vietnam because they're bitter, right? They lost their
Mm.
country, they're bitter, and they were. I was not proud of it, and it was at that time it was like it's basically a third world country, and I was not proud of it. I had a lot of like angst, and but I went there and I realized it's a country. It's not what my parents described it.
Mm.
It wasn't what TV showed it as. It was, it was definitely different back then, but I could see the beginning of like something special growing there. And it also gave me a sense of like being proud of something, right? Like, I wasn't before being an American, you share an American culture, but sometimes you're outside of the American culture when you don't look the right way. And having that experience in Vietnam, it opened my eyes. It gave me a confidence I never had before. That was a big thing too. A confidence I never had before after going to Vietnam and seeing a culture that I shared. And it was nice, like going places, not having to explain. Sometimes in America, you have to explain your culture. And when you go to Vietnam, and like that's the culture I shared, and so it was nice. It really changed my
Wow, that's
perspective on
That's
things.
so you
yeah.
said 19. You were 19 when you first went to
Mhm.
Vietnam. So how is that compared to now? If you kind of, think about how you took in Vietnam versus where it is now. And then you said like they're going somewhere special. Do you feel that way? Do you feel that's kind of being
I do,
biased?
I do, and sometimes that's
Mm.
controversial in the Vietnamese community. There
Oh.
are many Vietnamese that will never travel. One thing it's really interesting. Korea and Vietnam, though, a lot of Vietnamese view Korea as what we could have been.
Mm.
Oh.
You all had the Korean War in the
Yeah,
50s.
we're
Oh
both
yeah, yeah.
war-torn
Yeah,
countries.
And
Both
then
are.
Vietnam
Absolutely.
Vietnam had the war in the 70s.
Correct.
But if you go back to that time in the 50s, Korea was dirt poor. I mean,
Correct.
there
Mhm.
was not like I remember some Koreans would tell me a story. They would hang a piece of fish, a dried fish up, and right, they would have a bowl of rice. They'd eat the rice, look at the
Look at the
fish,
fish.
but you couldn't eat it because like, it was too precious to eat that fish. You would just eat the rice, looking at the fish, right? Like I mean,
That's a true
my
story.
so
Yeah.
Vietnamese at the time actually there was development, right? It wasn't as poor but and so when the Vietnamese look at that, Korea was dirt poor, and then look at them now.
We were
Mm.
poorer than North Korea at one point, especially the late 50s and 60s.
Yeah,
Yeah. North
yeah.
Korea was doing better than us.
So
Mhm.
so a lot of Vietnamese, they look with a lot of jealousy is a little too strong a word, but I mean they look at that Korea as like that model. We could have been that model if, let's say, the war went differently, or if we didn't suffer through kind of 20 years. And so, and then there's this generation of refugees that came from Vietnam over to the states and other places, and they carry that Southern flag. It's interesting. I didn't know what the Vietnamese flag looked like until I was 19 years old. I didn't even know what it looked like. I went to Vietnam, looked around, like, I asked my parents, like, "What's that?" And they would give me a sly look, and they wouldn't say it at the time because they're in Vietnam. But I
Wow, wow.
realized, oh my god, that's the Vietnamese flag, because all over America they would fly the yellow and red
Mm.
striped flag because that's
That's
the
the
flag.
North. That's
That's
the
the
North.
Southern flag.
Oh, that's the southern
That's
flag.
the South
Right, right, right,
is the supported by the U.S.
right.
But yeah, it,
Oh, I'm learning some new stuff right now. This is
it,
interesting.
but we there was a jealousy. There's a lot of jealousy about like how that could have turned out differently.
Huh. What about now though? Because like it's obviously getting better, developing a lot more. Do they still view it as an obstacle to get to where Korea is right now, or do they kind of view it as like, oh, now we're getting there? Like, how do people in modern days look at that? Maybe even for the younger generations, do they have a different view, perhaps?
At this point,
Yeah.
the communist ideology and capitalism and all that stuff.
Mm,
In a lot of ways, Vietnam's more capitalist than the states, right? Like
yeah.
like money speaks over there, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you know, there's a lot of opportunity. The population's young,
Mm,
they're hungry, and I find it interesting too with Korea. I recently read Korea has, I think, I'm sorry, the second lowest happiness rate, right? Like in all
Mm.
of Asia, right? Like basically, Koreans are not very happy with
I
their
am
lives,
not surprised by that
Yeah.
whatsoever.
and I think suicide. I think the Korea's number two or number three in the world as far as
Mm.
suicides, right?
Very high.
I think in that same, I looked at that thing, and then I looked at the chart. I tried to look for Vietnam in there. Vietnam's like the second happiest in all of Asia. So I thought it was so interesting, like um, that dynamic. They're excited about the future. They see a lot of opportunity. Their economy is growing, and I think that they have a lot of positive things. They're hungry. Like they're hungry for success.
Robert, is that based on like surveys? Um, how do they come to those conclusions? about the
Yeah,
highest
I think it's
prices.
these OECD
Okay.
rankings and whatnot. So they'll do
Yeah.
the surveys and
Yeah.
whatnot. So I'm sure it's got
Special
some
categories.
scientific
So you
basis.
think like Vietnamese, the like trajectory is up where Korea is kind of like
I, you know,
peaking, maybe
as an
plateauing?
outsider, when I talk to Koreans, I don't even understand why Koreans are so depressed. If your guys are not winning, who's winning? Right? Like if you look at the world, right? If Korea is not winning, who's winning?
Mm. Mm.
Like, I mean, with the K-pop, the success of the different companies here, and the wealth that's been generated, and the travel that Koreans and comparing that to the 50, 60 years ago, how it was,
Mm.
why is everyone so unhappy?
I think if you look at the macro level, yeah, like Korea is exporting all this soft power, like media and things like that. But general population, I don't think they share that same wealth, or they just feel left behind because the
Very
country,
uneven
yeah,
distribution of
because
wealth.
country
Mm.
developed so quickly that some of these, especially like elderly population, I heard there's a lot of yeah, like suicidal rate because they're kind of left behind. Their kids left them. They're lonely. They can't really support themselves. So
And honestly, that
is
happens a
that
lot in the younger generation too when it comes to competitive nature of like how you have to it's such a cutthroat society. You have to
exactly?
survive. You have to
Yeah,
beat your competition
yeah.
in order to like thrive and be okay. So
Maybe
yeah.
the ceiling has been set so high that people trying to reach it, they can't. Maybe they feel depressed or
Mhm. And those that actually do make it obviously are very successful and they're able to carry a positive message to the rest of the world. But the problem is that's a small
small
percentage and
percentage.
the rest are still having a tough time and challenges.
Yep.
I think that may be it.
Yeah. But there's another perspective of how Vietnamese view the Korean miracle too, right? When I talk to Vietnamese and a lot of Vietnamese have traveled here to Korea to live. I think Vietnamese is the second largest population behind Chinese
In
in
Korea?
Korea now,
Wow.
Oh wow,
ethnically.
it's that large.
It is not as large as Chinese, of course, but it is the second largest
Mm.
ethnic population in Korea now. So they're here. They love it here. They make a lot of money here compared to other
Mhm.
places. It's somewhat welcoming here. I won't say completely welcoming, but it's they're able to get the visas and other ways
It's
to
probably
get
getting
in.
better. Maybe.
I mean, for them, it's money, right? Korea doesn't have a lot of children these days, right? The workers aren't there. The
Yep.
workers are not there.
We have
So
one of the lowest birth rates in the world right
yeah,
now. I
I
think
mean,
I
I
think
think
we
it's
do have
number
the
one.
I think
Yeah.
we are number one actually.
and Koreans are somewhat wealthy, right? The children don't. They're not going to work in the factory. They're not going to work in the kogi restaurants,
They're
right?
gonna
Like
want
they're gonna
to go to the top,
They all
yeah,
universities and
they all want to though,
get into
although in
tech.
reality it doesn't work that
yeah.
way.
Not everyone can work at
Yeah.
Samsung, right?
Yeah.
Some people got to work at the restaurants, right? Some
Correct.
people got to work at the penny jobs.
Gotta serve you some cold
But
beer.
if you go to restaurants these days, like in Seoul, almost every restaurant has one Vietnamese worker. Just the other day in Yongsan at that beer restaurant that cold beer. One of the waitresses, I could tell her Korean wasn't spot on,
Mm.
so I just took a shot in the dark. I was like, "Are you Vietnamese?" She's like, "How'd you know?" Like I was like she looked a little Vietnamese. Went up.
Mm.
She's a Vietnamese bartender. And that happens at almost every restaurant I
Okay,
go to.
I have a funny story. So when I first met Robert, um, we went to this Korean barbecue restaurant near our house, and we just got to Korea not too long ago. So, but he took us there, and he started ordering in Vietnamese. I'm like, where am I? Am I in Korea? Am I in Vietnam? Am I in the US?
Yeah,
I should be
Yeah.
the one ordering in Korean.
And I never would have found
Yeah.
those places either.
So the
yeah,
the
Yeah.
waitresses there were like
yeah.
all Vietnamese.
But it's a huge population. There's actually a lot of history with Korean Vietnamese. Vietnamese have been going to Korea since 1,000 years ago. I don't know if you know. Like there was a
Teach,
Lee,
teach us, give us a history
the
lesson.
Lee dynasty. So there was a Lee dynasty around 1,100 something about 1,000 years ago. So they were out of favor. They lost their place in the government down in Vietnam. So it's not clear how they came to Korea, whether they were shipwrecked or they intended Korea as a destination, but they landed here in Korea. The Korean clan Yi Hwasa, they actually have roots back in Vietnam. So we talk about like this podcast called Almost Korean. You guys might almost be Vietnamese.
It's really interesting you say that because when they started coming out with those DNA test kits like those 23andMe.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys ever done it, right? But I remember when those came out. I remember my family around saying like, "Oh, you know what? If we did it, we're gonna come out like 100% Korean." I don't think you have any idea how mixed we are. even amongst like Asians, right?
Yeah.
Amongst like different countries in Asia,
Yeah.
I bet there's going to be a bunch of like Vietnamese in it,
Yeah.
Chinese, and so
Yeah.
on and so forth.
I think we all
Yeah.
have Chinese in us, right?
Oh, for sure.
We all got Chinese.
Mongolians too, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but as far as the Vietnamese coming out, there's a lot of Vietnamese, and they've been coming since for 1,000 years. But that population is growing, and they see a future here. And they're having their children here. I think it's interesting. Like in Vietnam, we have a lot of Vietnamese Americans that come back, and there's a whole economy and whatnot that kind of service them. But I think in the near future, there's gonna be a whole group of Korean Vietnamese that travel back to Vietnam to explore their roots there. And
Interesting.
I think there's gonna be a lot of folks that are gonna be exploring roots and culture because they're not getting it here because they're sort of the parents are wanting the kids to absorb the Korean culture first. But later on, I think there's be some curiosity. Some of those kids go
I
back.
I remember almost 20 years ago when I first came to the US, I went back to my hometown, which is very country. And I remember seeing signs as marry a Vietnamese woman. And so,
What?
yeah, so
I
you,
did I did the reverse, right?
yeah, because I remember I don't know how prevalent it is now, but back then, I think a lot of these older farmers couldn't find a woman to marry, so
Mm,
they had these like matching company
services?
where they would
Mm.
bring in like Southeast Asian women, Filipino, Vietnamese.
Oh,
So I remember seeing that sign. I was like, wow, that's crazy.
wow.
And I don't know. Do you know if that's like still prevalent?
No, it's
Maybe is it
it's not
less?
as huge as it used to be,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
But it's still very prevalent. Marrying a Korean man, instantly, like the one difference you could always do with a Western a person too, but like at least with Korea, I do share a little bit of cultural affinity with Korea.
Mhm.
We take our shoes off in the house, right? Like
Mm,
like they're
Asian.
we eat rice, right? So when they looking at this, like a Western man is the culture is very different. The food is very, very different.
Mhm.
Everything is a lot very different. Whereas with Korean men, they may not share the language, but they share a lot of similar customs and ways of doing things, and similar thoughts about family and culture and other things. So, yeah, it's very prevalent. It still happens a lot, but yeah, I will say they come over here. They have this idea, right? Like, so the Korean man that goes down to Vietnam to marry, oftentimes they're farmers. Oftentimes they're not living the city, right? They're not the K-pop star like with the abs and everything, right? But that's what the Vietnamese woman might be thinking,
thinking.
right?
Mm.
And they come in there like, wow, I'm living on a farm. My mother-in-law controls my life, and
Not
this or
not
that,
not
right?
all the men looks like BTS.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and my husband, like, is not exactly in shape, right? So, that happens a lot. So, but there's been greater awareness of that in Vietnam. So, a lot of folks are going into it eyes open now, as opposed to eyes closed. But it is what it is, and it's a way for them to live a better life. And a lot of them use that also to bring their mothers, their fathers, their brothers, their sisters to have a better life. And I constantly hear that where um, uh, they're here and but part of the reason they're here, not just for their life, but also to improve their lives, either send money back or as a way to get their brothers, their sisters, and all that. Because it is a tough life. It's while it's improved, while the trajectory has completely changed, it's still a hard life, and you're making the dong is not making doesn't make very much money, right?
Mm,
It's
mm.
not enough money. So.
Yeah, so I wanna switch gears a little bit and talk about our recent trip to Vietnam. So 3 of us actually got a chance to go to Vietnam together as a guys trip with, our wife's permission. Um,
That's very important.
and yeah, that was my first time going to Vietnam, and I had such a great time, and I was pretty surprised at how cheap the things were even compared to Korean,
Hmm.
I guess, economy. So, yeah, you guys wanna talk about
Yeah.
your experience with the Vietnam trip?
Yes. So I've been to Vietnam a couple times prior to that, but both of those experiences have been really pleasant, and I think the fact that it's so affordable makes it more fun too. Because like obviously when you're going on a trip, you want to plan out like you got to get a flight ticket, you got to get like hotels, and then like there's all the other this money that you're gonna spend, maybe buy
Mhm.
souvenirs, and you're not just gonna go there and do nothing, right? You still have to have an experience, get some food. So like budgeting is a big deal. You have to at least consider it. But when you have a little less pressure on it, I feel like the enjoyment factor kind of goes up a lot more,
Sure.
right? And plus, the weather is so nice. So what
Yeah.
is there to complain about when it
Yes,
comes to that?
yeah.
Yeah.
For those of you that are listening and watching, Korea is so cold right
It
now.
is unbelievably cold right
Oh my
now.
god, it's like in the 20 Fahrenheit.
Mhm.
It's so cold. So we went to a city called Da Nang in Vietnam. It was what very pleasant mid 70s,
Mhm.
60s during the night. It was
Clear
so nice.
skies. Yep.
Clear sky.
Mhm.
It didn't rain once. So nice.
Yeah. So I love it. I loved it, and I enjoyed the food too. So I think it just added a lot of like, enjoyment factors to it.
Yeah. What do you
Yeah.
enjoy about going to Vietnam?
For me, going to Vietnam is like it's like going home. But it's kind of cliche to say it like that. But there's this warmness that
Mhm.
I feel because it's almost I speak two languages and maybe if you count Korean then three. But I have different personalities in different languages, right?
Mm,
And
for
when I'm
sure.
in Vietnamese, somehow that I'm a totally different personality when I'm speaking to Vietnamese, right? Because there's this confidence that comes out. There's this, I do, I truly believe like we have different personalities in the languages we speak.
For sure. You're a
Um,
superstar in Vietnam.
uh,
You were a great tour guide for us.
Yeah, but I loved it. It's probably my eighth, ninth time going to Vietnam. So it's going back to something I know. Da Nang is something I've been to several times. But the funny thing about Da Nang, and you guys were there, it's half Korean.
That is true.
Yeah.
It's
That
incredibly
is
Korean.
true.
Yeah, there's so
We
many Korean
Yeah.
restaurants. I was so surprised to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember going to Myeongpong places like getting bags, and the bag will say like Da Nang Shi Kyunggi Do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
actually like I mean straight up. Another interesting. I was there 5 6 years ago. I remember being at hotels and marketplaces and constantly having to translate. Some Korean guys like I want six of those socks, and the lady does not know what he's saying. Like, six. What do you want? Six socks? Like
Mhm.
and there was so much miscommunication 5 6 years. On this trip, I didn't see that. The Vietnamese have learned enough Korean to cater and talk
I
to.
noticed that.
That's
Like I didn't
That
spend
is
it
very
was
much
so
time.
crazy. It was I think a lot of them understood more Korean than English.
in English. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
So we're just speaking Korean to them.
Yeah, and it's tough because my wife, it's so funny. My wife does this too, right? She is full on Korean, right? But she won't, even though she knows the other person may speak a little bit of Korean and their Korean is better than their English, she'll somehow still speak English to the person. And like, because she just somehow falls back to English as
Yeah.
the only language other people
It's like
understand.
the universal
Yeah,
language.
yeah. It's like a universal assumption, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it is such a commonly used language that I feel like, you just assume that English is the way to go
Yeah.
when you're in a foreign country. And I ended up doing the same thing. And it almost felt weird to speak Korean to a Vietnamese person. And then they were actually able to communicate it back to me.
So I mean, but Da Nang, so many Koreans. The economy's oriented itself for that Korean population there, and all over, frankly, all over Vietnam. But one thing I want to ask you is like, why do you think they're going to Vietnam so much? Why is Vietnam such a destination for Koreans to not just vacation but also live and work? You know,
I mean,
I don't
one thing I
know
could think
if I
of
have a yeah.
is cost of living.
Cost of
Right?
living is
It's just
huge.
yeah,
it's just cheaper. I don't know. Like when I think of at least from my short time here, I feel like Southeast Asia is a destination for East Asians because it's cheaper. It's warmer. It's almost like for Americans, like traveling to like Mexico and like
Mm,
Central America for vacation.
I totally see that.
Yeah. There's better fruit. It's cheaper.
the fruit's definitely better.
It's so
I'll say
much
that.
better and cheaper.
Climate's nice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then, your
climate's
money
nice.
goes further. It just translates to increased quality of life. Yeah, so like we're in the year 2026. A lot of these countries that we considered once like third world countries have also caught up a lot in many ways.
Yeah,
Now, I'm
yeah.
not going to say like, some of these countries are like at the same level as the US or Korea, Japan, but in many ways, a lot of these quality of life have come up. So if you earn a currency that stretches further, like you just mentioned, and your purchasing power is higher, that means you can live a much more comfortable life.
Arbitrage, baby, arbitrage.
And that is a luxury to have in life. And oftentimes that is a very attractive thing. I think about that kind of stuff to be honest.
Yeah, I think if you live in a stronger like economic country,
Mm.
you have the option to move to somewhere where your money stretches farther, right? Whereas you can't do that the other way around.
And another thing is that we just talked about how hyper competitive Korea is. So when you grow up like that and then you're still having challenges, what if instead of doing that, instead of dealing with the challenges, you go somewhere else, you can actually enjoy a little bit more and actually like, maybe alleviate some of that stress that you have.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
that's what I got. Like, I sent my kids to summer school last year in Vietnam, and it was funny. Even though it was called the American school, it was like half populated with Koreans, right? And so,
oh,
I had some interaction with some of the Koreans, and like, why not live there, right? If you get to live here, she has a maid, comes out once or twice every week. She
mm,
has services. She has a Korean school that'll teach Korean to her kids. I mean, she was
that
like,
is
why not
Okay.
live in that?
That's
that is
crazy.
amazing.
Yeah.
So she was. I mean,
I'd
Korean
have
food's
to look
available
into
down
that this
there.
summer.
Wait a second, that is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thinking about retiring down over there, but I'm gonna spend probably spend half my time in Korea and half time in Vietnam going forward. But
That is pretty amazing.
I
Yeah.
was so surprised at Da Nang. It was such a, at least where we were staying, very touristy. But there are so many expats there, right? Like what do we call 'em? Digital nomads,
yep,
right? Because
Mhm.
it's cheap to live there, and if you can work from anywhere in the world, why not? You
yep,
know?
yeah. Da Nang's
So
definitely developed a reputation for
yeah.
digital nomads, expat community. We were staying in the expat community there. Yeah, you can't beat the cheap eats, the weather. Da Nang's a newer city, so it's cleaner than so
Cleaner.
many of the other
Mhm.
cities. It's a new city, so it doesn't have that older character that some of the other characters, which it's easier to kind of take on when you're a foreigner or
Yeah,
whatnot.
very
So
foreigner friendly,
yep.
beautiful beaches. And another thing that I found really interesting was that we talked about like having um, two economies, for one for foreigners and one for locals,
Mhm.
which I thought was super interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
For those who may not know, Robert, do you mind explaining just a little bit more
yeah,
about the
Yeah,
economies?
no, Vietnam. The way I see it, the Vietnam's kind of developed like these two economies, and so others have talked about this before. But you watch those travel videos, and someone says, "Oh, you can live like a king and live like a king and spend an entire day under $10, right? Like, and yeah, that exists. That absolutely exists. You can get a bowl of pho for $1, maybe even less. You can get accommodations
That is
for
incredible.
cheap. But they're all kind of at a certain level, right? And as an expat, we're kind of used to a certain level. Maybe we're used to AC.
For sure.
Maybe we're used
a
to
matching table and chair
maybe we're
at a restaurant.
even a beer, right? You guys are
You need a reference point for this one.
you guys were we did this. We were shot your first beer in Vietnam. How was it served, right? It was served in a glass with
With
ice.
ice, with
ice.
a bucket full of
And I
ice.
could
Yes.
see the shock in your eyes.
That was strange for me.
You know,
That was
because
strange.
Because
we
the beer
don't.
was warm, you
Yeah,
needed the ice to cool it.
but that's the way it is, right? Like that's how it is because they're not going to refrigerate their beer. They have tons of cases of beer. They don't have refrigerator space. They'd rather just have ice. It's
Yeah.
cheaper that way, right? And so you go to another place with ice cold beer. Well, you got to charge you $3-4 for that. You can't charge you like less than $1 for that. So expats,
That makes sense.
another thing, you want to eat pasta. You want to eat like those things cost money. Pasta's not something native thing there.
Indigenous food.
So a lot of those imports. So what happens is expats want out and rich Vietnamese these days. There is a huge rich Vietnamese population now. They've kind of graduated to this level where a certain level of service, certain level of cleanliness, certain level of quality. They're not stuffing the meat with extra flour. It's um, it- and that economy now exists for that level, right? So instead of a $1 pho, it's a $5 pho. It's still $5 to us. I mean,
It is
It's
still
still
really
cheap
cheap
to
compared
us.
to.
but
Yeah.
it's nothing compared to like what it is in the States still.
Correct.
But for Vietnamese, a regular person who only makes $500 a month, $5 pho is not a reasonable thing. It's ridiculous to even think like
That is
that.
everybody's thing for them.
Yeah, so
you
it
know?
doesn't
Yeah.
even exist in their world, right? They're not going to spend $5, and for them, the pho down the street is just as good. You know, because from their perspective, they don't need the AC, right? They don't need that clean table, the clean napkin that's next to you. They don't need that stone bowl, right? That stone bowl is a gimmick, right? If anyone gets a stone bowl pot of pho, all I do is just burn myself on it. I do not see what the difference is. Okay, I keep burning myself in that bowl. It costs me an extra $2-3. Just think that bone.
You mean to tell me you don't like dorsal bibimbap?
No, those are bibimbap. I don't know. Something with Vietnamese, it's so hot, man. It's soup. I always
true.
burn myself on
It's
it.
already hot. Bibimbap kind of comes out.
Yeah,
Right,
bibimbap,
right.
and I love bibimbap because it has that burnt rice.
Yes.
I love
That
it.
is delicious,
I love
though.
that
That
rice.
is really
Yeah,
delicious.
you're right.
But burnt pho, no, man.
Burnt pho.
I don't need it. Man.
Pho 누룽지.
It's already
Yeah.
hot. I don't need it like piping. Like I just burn myself all day.
I can totally see that. When you
But
put it that way.
but with the two economies, it exists almost separately of each other. Regular Vietnamese, we had a coffee at a regular Vietnamese. They call it Cafe Bình Young. Like it's for the regular people. Of course, tourists can go there and they're happy to
For
serve
sure.
for tourists, but
For sure.
they're not going to have the clean bathroom. You might not have a nice silverware. You might not have a lot of the things that you might be used to, but you can have it for that cheap price. But it's the interesting thing is that the folks live on the regular economy, and then there's this whole separate economy where it services the foreigners and the rich Vietnamese. It exists, and they say side by side, and you can experience either while you're on your trip, right? And I think it's interesting to have that.
And we kind of saw that, right?
Definitely saw that. We experienced both, right? We went to this mom and pop cafe with this older lady serving us. It's like less than $1 coffee.
Like 70 cents.
Yeah, it was the darkest coffee I've ever had.
That was black. That was
Yeah.
black. I mean, there's just there's colors.
opaque.
Like you couldn't see the reflection from it was so black, that coffee.
And then the table, there were like 4 or 5 tables in the cafe. They're all different antique.
What about the
looking tables.
chairs?
Yeah.
And the chairs are all different too.
Oh, yeah.
So
And then the crazy thing is, like, since we're using coffee as an example, and then you go to Starbucks, and the prices are not that different from what you would pay here in Korea. So that got me thinking, oh my God, like the locals cannot afford this thing.
it's like 5 times more expensive, but probably very similar.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Starbucks. Starbucks is not that successful in Vietnam. They actually had a lot of growing pains. Number one, they're not serving the same type of coffee. Vietnamese typically use a different bean, Robustico versus Arabica. But also, they don't get it, right? Like, why are you paying $6, $5 for
It doesn't
a
have that
coffee?
same status like you do in
Yeah.
the rest of the world.
Yeah.
It's funny because, like, in Korea, the
Oh,
more
sorry.
expensive coffee is, people be like, oh, this must be good stuff.
Yeah.
If it's cheap, it actually goes out of business.
So
Yeah.
I feel like we don't in Korea there isn't really like two different like distinct economy. I mean, obviously
Yeah,
you have
no,
the
not really.
you have like the market and
Yes.
cheaper areas, but
I
they're
wouldn't
all kind
necessarily.
of blended.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily kind of like separate that into different economy. It's still like one.
It's
Whether you're
also
expert or not.
it's readily available for locals too.
Yep.
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very interesting.
Yeah, something I never really would have thought about.
So yeah, I mean Da Nang, I had such a wonderful time. I would love to go back to Vietnam. I would love to visit
Yeah.
Ho Chi Minh City
Mhm.
and Hanoi, like, all the different cities.
I got to second you, Ted, because like I mean, I'm
You've been
almost.
to those places.
I
right?
have.
Yeah.
I've been to Ho Chi Minh City. I've been to Hanoi, and now Da Nang. I got to see the southern portion, the northern portion, now the the central location. But and I gotta say, I'm almost Korean, but I wouldn't mind being somewhat Vietnamese. when it comes
Like I
to my
said, you
trips.
might almost be Vietnamese too, right?
It's possible by blood.
Can you speak some Vietnamese for us?
I-
I'm just kidding.
I know one thing, and I think that's not a nice word. So
No, we're not gonna repeat that
I'll
here.
save that.
So we'll save that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the food's great. The trip was amazing, and the hospitality by Robert and some of his family members. It was a wonderful time.
And we were happy to have you. I know my relative was happy to have you guys, and we had a great time. And I love showing my culture off a little bit to you guys. So yeah,
Would love to visit again if possible. Yeah, definitely. And same thing to all our viewers. If you get a chance, it's a beautiful country to go. So
Yeah,
check
if you
it out.
ever hesitated on visiting Vietnam because you don't really know about it, highly recommend. I think Da Nang would be a great place for Koreans to especially visit, right?
Mhm.
Because if you ever miss Korean food, it's right there.
Yep.
Yep.
And it's like an
Plenty of
entry
food.
level,
Yes.
right?
And the other
don't start with sundae.
and plenty of French food too. So if
Yes.
you getting a hanker for Western food, there's a lot of French food with the
It
background.
is so interesting.
yeah.
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who would've thought?
the bread like banh mi.
Yeah. Oh, so
chef's
good.
kiss.
Who do you
So-
thought?
so
I'm part
good.
French right here. You know?
Yes. Yes.
So good.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much, Robert, for joining us today. We need to have a guest here more often because
Absolutely.
this is fun
I think this added a lot of dynamic element to the conversation, and I truly enjoyed it.
for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe people might get tired of us talking, so gotta bring fresh voice here. So it's been great. So yeah,
Thank you,
Well,
Robert.
thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
awesome.
All right.
All right, That's it. That's it for almost 3 into this episode.
It's a wrap.
See you guys next time.
Peace.